Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got another video that is from the series that one of my viewers referred to as co-videos. Meaning these are videos that I'm filming during this particularly unpleasant time in humanity's history when a lot of people are being trapped on inside, and this is going to be another disassembly discourse, meaning I'm just taking a knife apart and ranting as I'm doing so. Today's subject happens to be my beloved Spyderco Slysz Bowie, which has not seen some disassembly love in a good long time. So I figure it's about time that I jump in there and get that done. So pop this guy loose. I don't know what I lubed this up with last time, but it's not running so smooth anymore, so it's been a little while here. So the topic of today's thing is starting a YouTube channel. And, you know, more specifically, some of the, oh boy, whatever that was, I must have tried to use like a little bit of fluoro grease on this. I bet this was like Finish Line fluoro grease, and that's probably why this is running so poorly at the moment. So, yeah. Okay, good. I'm gonna do some good here. This little Slysz is gonna be in a much better place as soon as I'm finished with it. And I'm aware that it's Slysz technically, but oh boy. Anyways, this guy is why are you not coming off here? I think I put a little too much Loctite on there last time I took it. This has probably been the better part of a year since I took this guy down. So it's about damn time. So one of the common things that people email me for, and I get a lot of emails, and I try to respond to, you know, a lot of them. The ones I can't respond to usually are just like, hey, Nick, I need a recommendation. I need this. Usually it's like 3 pages worth of requirements, and I need it for $50 or less. Like, I'm sorry, buddy. You know, it would take more time than I have just to think about the answer to that, let alone write the email. And, you know, just watch the channel. Hey, Nick, recommend a good pocket knife. Like, bro, I have a whole channel doing that. Why are you asking me? Anyways, I digress. God, this is grody. Using some rubbing alcohol here. And if you're curious about the tools I'm using, Shabazz.com/tools. But nonetheless, one of the other kind of emails that I regularly get, and that I always wish I had a better answer for, are the people who are just starting a YouTube channel. The people who are, you know, just barely getting, you know, involved there, but they look to me as a role model for some reason. No, do not be better. But nonetheless, they ask me, you know, hey, Nick, what should I do as I'm starting off a YouTube channel? Do you have any advice for a brand new YouTuber, etc.? I always find myself at a little bit of a loss because at some level, I am an accident. Like, I don't believe I, as a human, am an accident. I might have been. I never asked my folks, but nonetheless, this channel and its approach and its stature and everything is completely and totally accidental. I've told that story many times before, but I didn't expect. You know, I figured I'd put something up there that a couple of people might find, and then people started subscribing, and I kept doing it because I was enjoying it, right? And I still am. But nonetheless, I haven't put that much effort into, you know, like, and what I mean by that is, yeah, obviously I put a bunch of effort in. I've filmed a bunch of freaking videos. I've done a lot of, you know, work, you know, on the channel, but I haven't put like the kinds of social media optimization stuff that a lot of people talk about into the channel. That's never been a route that I've taken, and that's probably hurt me, honestly. If I'd sat down, if I was thinking SEO, you know, the one SEO-related thing I've ever done was to put the full Nick Shabazz review in all of the titles after a certain point. That way people could search for, you know, such and such Shabazz. You know, if they want a review of the freaking Chaparral Lightweight, they'd search Chaparral FRN Shabazz, and they'd find me. You know, that's a thing I've done, but beyond that, really, I've been slacking. And so a lot of my growth, I feel like, has been kind of organic, I guess. I haven't used much in the way of pesticides. Oh, wait, that's not what that means here. But a lot of my growth and a lot of the channel's growth has been sort of both accidental and organic. I'm not good at any of that SEO stuff. I'm just sort of bumbling my way through here. And so I think a lot of people have this idea that I'm going to have like, oh, these are the 10 magical solutions. You know, if you do these things, you're going to have a successful YouTube channel. And in fact, you know, I've had friends and even family ask me, you know, hey, Nick, I'm thinking I should start a YouTube channel. Get rich quick. Like, oh, it's not going to get you rich and it ain't going to be quick. Both of those things are provably false. No, I mean, and I know they mean something else than that, but still. A couple of things, though, do come to mind. Even though I've been sort of accidental in all of this, a couple of things do come to mind as things that I often see people stumble with as they're doing this. One of the big things that I think a lot of people struggle with, and that I certainly struggled with early on, is form. Right? And I think I've mentioned all this a little bit before, but, maybe some folks have missed that video, or who knows. But the form, because I have a whole video behind the gems, and it's a little dated now, but it talks a little bit about how I do a given review. If something ends up on my table for review, how do I handle it? What's my process look like? How do I do all of this such that, it goes from showing up to, how do I film things? How do I, as I'm filming, what am I looking at, etc. I've got that video there. But, more importantly, process-wise, a lot of folks I've noticed don't really have a format. They don't really have a thing that they do. And some folks definitely do. They have sort of a, I don't necessarily want to say a shtick, right? I mean, you could certainly argue that the good, the great, the bad, the ugly, that's a shtick. 100%. It's one that happens to work really well for me, and I think, and it's, by the way, it's not original to me. A lot of people are like, Nick, can I use the good, the bad, the ugly? Like I say, my baby. This was originally, I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly on, I think it was Oz Technica. But anyways, a lot of people, this is just an eyeglass cleaner, actually. But a lot of people, just start off by talking. And they'll just ramble for 30 minutes, like I'm probably about to do. But anyways, they'll just ramble for a while and then upload the video. And as a result, it's really hard to kind of get a sense of what's going on. In practice, I talk too damn much. Like if I were doing the video analytics stuff, like very few people watch all the way through to the end of my video, which is funny because those people will have already left the chat. So, well done. You are the ones who stuck around, so to speak, if you're watching this deep. But, I tend to talk too much, and my videos tend to be too long from a YouTube perspective and all of that. But a lot of people tend to just kind of sit there and ramble and rant, and for a while, it's okay. And if you're really entertaining, maybe you can pull it off. But one of the biggest issues is just like, I have no idea what this person's doing right now or where they're going or what's happening. I'm just scared. And honestly, that's how I end up feeling, especially, sometimes, and that's probably how a lot of my viewers felt when I started off, right? Coming up with the idea of talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly gave me a structure that people could understand. They would know that when I'm talking about something, I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. The great wasn't even a thing at first. But nonetheless, there's a lot of joy and there's a lot of benefit to having that kind of a structure in place on your channel, because it just makes things a lot easier to follow. So that's one common issue. It's just like people are just rambling and there's no understanding at all, or at least I have no understanding at all of where they're going or how they're getting there. And so as a result, it's kind of a slog, right, to get through the video. So think very hard about structure. Another thing that I'll say, and this is, again, something that's kind of a do as I say, not as I do moment, because I haven't done nearly as much of this, frankly, as I should have, is, look at what kind of videos are performing well. Now, unfortunately, if you were to follow this to its natural conclusion, you end up making clickbait videos, right? These top 10 pocket knives are going to blow your mind. I mean, yeah, that kind of stuff's going to, that's going to perform well. And if you look at what performs well on YouTube, chances are you're going to have a really bad opinion of humanity afterwards, right? If you're doing knife content, none of it's going to perform that well in the grand scheme of things. You're never going to hold a candle to, wow, look at this cute puppy falling down. And that's fine. You got to come to terms with it, right? You got an audience, but you got to figure out what goes well for that audience, and you got to figure out what, what's interesting there. But the thing is, one of the problems that I think a lot of people have is they use that to decide what they're doing on the channel, right? They see, okay, this is what performs really well. When I do X, people really like it. And then they only do that. And more importantly, and that can be fine if they're passionate about what people are interested in, that's great. But otherwise, you'll get people doing these reviews of things that they're not actually interested in, of things that they're not actually like, oh, wow, this performs super well, but I don't give any sort of a crap. And the thing is, if you don't give a crap about something, it's really really hard to make a good video about it. And you know, you can give a crap in a variety of ways. You can give a negative crap. That's not a thing, I think, at all. But nonetheless, you understand what I mean. You can be very passionate about not liking something. And indeed, there are some things I've been very passionate about not liking. And you can do those well. But the hardest videos, at least for me, and the ones that I think I do worst, are the ones where I don't have strong feelings either way, where it's just amazingly boring, but not in the sense of boring that I like. Instead, it's boring in the sense of like, wow, I really don't care about this thing, and this thing that I'm reviewing, I'm going to forget about in approximately 30 seconds here. Like, as soon as I put it back in the box, I forget having ever seen it. That's the kind of stuff that's really difficult. And or if there's a product category that you find really hard to do, like, okay, I know I could definitely do a lot more business, so to speak. I could get a lot more interest if I were to start reviewing, like, okay, ballad songs, for instance. You know, a lot of folks are interested in that content, and if I were just chasing clicks, I might go that route. But the thing is, A, I would hurt myself so bad with a bally. I can't be trusted. It kind of shocks me that I'm not hurting myself more often with pocket knives, right? Not a skilled man over here. But, you know, I know that's content that I could probably do well with, but the thing is, I'm not passionate about it, and so therefore it would probably be a bad video. And so I encourage you to kind of look at the intersection of your passions and what sells well. You know, for me, like in the flashlight market, I've noticed that, and sells well, I mean in the sense of what people are actually interested in. I've noticed that people, by and large, don't tend to watch very much flashlight content. You know, and some could argue, yeah, you're bad at it. Like, yeah, probably, that's true. There are people who are way better at flashlight content. There's a guy named Zero Ad, does amazing reviews. There's a guy named, although they're all text-based, and then Advanced Knife Bro is a good friend of mine in the review community, and he does flashlight reviews right, because he has the ability to go out and do beam shots. He has the ability to do, you know, he's much deeper into it, and for him, it's more passion-driven. For me, in order for a flashlight, the video to be worth a damn, I have to really feel strongly about it. I have to be really interested in that particular light. And lately, I've found that there's not all that many interesting flashlights out in the world. I mean, there are some, but by and large, it's just, hey, look, another black tube with a freaking emitter at the end of it. Whoop-de-freaking-do. And that's not as interesting to me. So you have to look for that intersection of what you're passionate about and what people are actually willing to watch. Because you could be very, very passionate about, you know, I don't freaking know, something super boring. I don't know, disassembling and maintaining a pocket knife. Oh, bad example. But you could be really passionate about something, you know, completely obscure that nobody's interested in, and that might cause you some trouble. But frankly, at another level, it might still be worth doing. Because there's probably that one or two other people out there in the world who feel equally passionate about that thing, and you might make a good friend doing it that way. So I'm never going to tell you, like, don't upload it. Like, no, it's free. Go for it. But find that intersection of what people are interested in seeing and what you're passionate about, and find a way to treat it such that you are passionate about treating it. And by treat it, I mean find a way to discuss it. Find a way to do it that, you know, works well for you. Don't find that you don't feel like you have to, you know, do something that you're not, because you got to be yourself, right? At the end of the day, people are buying. When people watch a video, there are a million, you know, gear reviewers out there. There were a bunch of them when I got started. I'm not the first in this game. God no. Not even the best in this game. I'm far from it. But nonetheless, you know, there's you got to be you, right? The reason that people would come to your channel is because they find there's something interesting about what you are or who you are or something like that that makes it a little bit more interesting for them. That they're like, oh, yeah, huh. I should pay attention to this jackass. And so, you know, if you're not being you, if you're being untrue to thyself, so to speak, you're gonna have a bad time. Your videos are gonna suck. No matter what else you do with them. Oh, that's much better now. And by the way, I used some knife pivot lube here. That's a pretty good choice for this guy. The other thing, since I'm not done ranting yet, the other one that I noticed is actually not doing so swinging in terms of action lately is the Ontario Rat #1 here, which I just had out for another video. But nonetheless, so I'll just keep going. So you got to make sure that you've got some sort of a structure, that is, so that way people understand what roughly it is that you're doing with your life. I think that's kind of an important well, it's an important detail. It's an important thing to get right. You also want to make sure that you're kind of in that confluence of things that people are at least slightly interested in and things that you are very interested in. because making videos about stuff you find boring is awful. And then you got to get some of the technical stuff right. Now, I'm going to freely admit, I am a low-effort channel in terms of the technical aspects of it. You know, there are people out there who do these amazing reviews, like Advanced Knife Bro. I always use as the paragon of this. He is trying so very, very hard in his editing, and I don't mean that as an insult. He does such an amazing job, but it takes him roughly, freaking forever. To edit his videos. I don't have a true sense of how long his time is, but it seems like it would take him forever, because he's doing all of these fancy overlayment of like, oh, here's the length, and then it's shown on the screen like, holy crap. And I can't even freaking be, when I screw something up, I don't even cut that out, right? Like I said, there's a little bit of low effort here. But there are elements that I try to get right. Right? One of the things you can't see is my lighting setup. I have 2 lights off to the side here, and then I've been adjusting my lighting a little bit at home. And, that's been great, but that was one of the things that really made it a lot easier for me. Because if your videos are really hard to hear, for instance, if your videos are really, frankly, unpleasant to watch for some reason, if your camera is constantly shaking around, it's not going to be great. And I still have this issue, by the way. It's something I'm still working on. But nonetheless, if you've got some of the technical issues going on, that can be another barrier for your content, right? If people can't hear you, if your camera is never in focus, etc. I've probably spent $300, $400, $500 on equipment, so to speak, to make things go right for the channel technically. On the lighting, and I use an iPhone, by the way. I'm just filming all this stuff. Like every single thing that you've seen on my channel has been filmed just with a good old-fashioned iPhone. And I buy the new one each year because each time there's a better camera, and each better camera, well, directly helps what I'm doing here. It's blatant consumerism, but it's the only camera I got, right? So it's still cheaper than going out and buying a, fancy old, DSLR and whatnot. But make sure that you got your camera right. At the very least, that you've got your setup, basically done. When I started off, I was hanging a paddle strap off a table, right? And it worked. Not well, but it did work. So make sure you got the technical stuff, too. Because the fact is, there are people who are very, very good presenters. They're entertaining humans, but if that stuff ain't working, you're going to be a pain, people aren't going to watch because it's just like, oh, God, this is terrible in that way. I've tried to stay at that nice peak of like, okay, this is the minimum amount of effort I need to put into technical matters. Well, people still watch the damn channel, right? And again, that's just because I hate editing, and I'd rather take the time that I would spend in doing fancy editing and intros and stuff like that. I'd rather take that time to film another review. That way people get some more actual information that they're after. To the best of my knowledge, nobody has ever watched a YouTube channel specifically to hear their theme song bumper intro with their logo smashing in and everything. Like, no, absolutely not. And to me, that always feels a little bit like, why are you going there? Like, I didn't even have a logo for a long time until, my buddy Ari helped me out with this, absolute gem of a logo. He's ariw.com. A-R-I-W. He's great. That's not like a paid shout out or anything. Oh, crap. I should have mentioned him and my awesome people that I've met through this journey video. But nonetheless, make sure that you've got the basics right before you start doing all the fancy stuff. If you're just starting your YouTube channel and the very first thing you're doing is, generating a fancy, rock and roll intro with, the Z Hunter coming smashing through the screen on the viewer, like, yeah, you might not be spending your time right, so to speak. At least according to my perspective of the world. So, focus on those really important technical details, but I wouldn't focus too hard on all of them. You don't have to go out and buy $1 million camera these days. I mean, chances are the phone that you've got is going to be absolutely fine. I mean, my channel started off, what time frame would that have been? Like an iPhone 6, something like that. I mean, maybe 6S. You probably have everything that you need, and especially if you're willing to film at the daytime you can do what you need to do. So don't worry too much on the tech side as you're getting started. So, I mean, in both ends, make sure that you're not overdoing it on the tech side, because then you're just wasting time and effort that you could have been putting into good content. But also don't let the tech side torpedo things, because if your tech side is so bad, people won't come back. So, I mean, that's another thing to consider. The other thing is, think about what it is that you like from channels. Think about what it is that drives you crazy as you watch a YouTube channel. You know, for instance, there are channels that there are a lot of YouTube tropes, right? You know, a good example of this is a channel, Davey504. Now, this guy has like 11 billion subscribers. You know, you live in a glass house, don't throw stones, and I'm not sitting here saying, oh, a bad person. In fact, I watch his channel. It's entertaining. He's a person with a lot of personality. He plays freaking bass. That's basically his shtick. Basically his shtick, But anyways, he does all of the YouTube things that drive me a little bit crazy. He does the long, elaborate introductions. He does the, you know, so, okay, slap like now, and make sure to subscribe and hit the bell, and share me, put me in your playlists, and send links to all of your friends. And, you know, he'll go through and he'll do all of those things, one after the other, and it's just like, shut up! Or similarly, you'll get, like, intro songs and everything like that, where people will have, like, you know, a picture of their cat jumping, and, you know, like, okay, maybe. But by and large, that's not what people are actually interested in. If I tune into a video to learn about a piece of gear, or if I turn into a video to learn about something, if I turn into a video to learn about how to, I don't know, install a deadbolt in a door or something like that, you know, I have no real particular desire to see a picture of, look, I'll take a look at the picture of a cat, because your cat's probably cute, right? But I have no particular interest in learning about, in hearing a theme song, or hearing seeing your intro video. Just get to the freaking point already. And, you know, many people already say that in my comments, like, Nick, get to the freaking point already. You've been, given this disclaimer for 20 minutes, etc. Like, yeah, they got a point. Again, do as I say, not as I do. But that's another thing. Like, think about what it is that drives you crazy when somebody's making a YouTube channel, and don't do those things, right? Find something else different to do that won't drive people quite so crazy. Make sure you're driving your viewers oh, God, that was way too much oil. Hold on, let me, let's spread the love a little bit. Put that second washer on there. As this piece of Teflon comes up there. But yeah, that's another piece of advice I would give you. Is just generally speaking, do what it is that you want to see in a YouTube channel, and chances are that'll be a little closer to what everybody else wants to see. But that said, some people like the, rock and roll intro with a, minute and a half of sitting there waiting for you to actually say something that isn't the same thing I've seen every damn time. I've yeah. Anyways, I digress. I'm a little bitter about that particular issue, but whatever. What was I saying there? So yeah, that's another factor, is just, do what it is that you think that you want to see. And that's the other biggest thing, I think, is as you're starting a YouTube channel, one of the biggest questions you should ask yourself is, what niche am I filling? What hole in the content world out there am I able to fill, basically? Again, I'm a freaking idiot here. I'm a hypocrite, because when I started off, I wasn't thinking about any of this. This has been a very interesting accident. However, in retrospect, I think the reason that my channel has had any modicum of success is that I was providing something that wasn't really super present at the time. A lot of the people who were doing reviewing at the time that I got started tended to be a little bit more high-speed, low-drag than I was. They tended to be a little bit more focused, especially in the knife world. They tend to be more focused on self-defense. They tended to be more focused on the tactical world, on the military, on all of those things, and that's not a bad thing to be. Certainly, I got nothing but respect for folks in the services, etc., but it ain't me, right? And fundamentally, as I'm looking out at, different reviews, I realized that none of these people were really speaking my language. All of these people were talking about these, pieces of daily tool in a way that was just like, no, this isn't something that comes up in my life. Like, luckily, stabbing people is not something I've had to worry too much about, which is great. I'm a very lucky man in that way. But nonetheless, so for me, the niche that I think I ended up filling was sort of a slightly more everyday, nerdy, gear reviewer. Somebody who knows and has learned, because I didn't start off knowing as much as I know now, and I still don't know that much. But nonetheless, I started off as just like a relatively Relatively normal, he says, wearing a Batman mask, disassembling a knife for YouTube. But I started off as a person who was not in that tradition, and I think for a lot of people that resonated. And so my channel got a little bit more traction, perhaps at that moment, than it might have otherwise done. If I were doing the same thing today, I think there were a lot more, kind of more normal-ish people out there doing reviews. And that's not to say there weren't any. There were definitely channels out there who predate me, but I sort of ended up in a niche, or maybe moved myself into, but mostly ended up in a niche that was just, it needed something at the time. So as you're doing all this, especially if you're in a field that's already pretty saturated, product reviews can definitely be one of those. But if you're in a field of the YouTube that's already pretty saturated, like, okay, if you are going to go on YouTube and get rich by doing, playing a video game, if you're going on YouTube and your goal is to get rich playing Fortnite or something like that, you need to think very long and hard about what it is that your content is going to provide relative to the people who are already providing, Fortnite content to a bazillion people. Why would somebody subscribe to your channel rather than just watching one of the existing ones? And, your answer may be because you're more awesome, and that may well be true. Yeah, but the problem is the algorithm doesn't care how damn awesome you are. And people don't necessarily know how awesome you are until they're already there. And if you give them no reason to be there, that can be a problem. So think very carefully about what it is specifically that you're willing to offer and that you're able to offer. What makes you, like as a human, specifically able... Oh, that's way better. Oh, that's way better. Oh, yes, indeed. I think I can loosen this up a little further, too, if I wanted to. But nonetheless, think about what you as a human are able to provide the world on YouTube that other people who are already doing it might not be able to, or at least might not be doing at the moment. Because that can make a major difference. So I think those are kind of my main pieces of advice that I'd give to a new channel, right? I'll try and remember them all, because this has no notes, by the way. I'm just literally sitting here working on pocket knives and ranting. But I think the big one is going to be to have a plan. Start each video. You don't have to have a fixed structure necessarily, but let people know where you're going with this. Even if you just start out, there's the same advice, back when I was, there's the same advice for every damn thing, right? Make sure people know what it is that you're doing. Walk them through the process before you go on ahead and get started doing it. Just because it will make it easier for them to understand what's going on. It'll make them more sympathetic, etc. So even if you just say, okay, now look, I'm going to talk about some things I love about this knife, but then I'm going to talk about why it's a piece of crap. If that's your format, then great, go for it. And you can do different ones, but have some kind of a format. Don't just stand up there and ramble, unlike in this video, or you're going to have a bit of a harder time there. Next thing is you want to absolutely make sure that you're getting your tech stuff right, because that's a way to turn people off pretty easily. Then what the hell else did I say? I said, make sure that you're bringing something unique to the table. I said, make sure that you're not doing the things that drive you crazy, and that you're doing the things that you like to see in videos. Because I think that's, you got to be the change you want to see in the world sometimes, right? Although, yeah, I'm just disassembling pocket knives. That's a little bit more high-end and fancy. Oh, yeah, and don't worry too much about the tech stuff on the early side, too. Make sure you're following that list. So anyways, and I think there's one other thing that I forgot in the middle there, but, nonetheless, I do hope that this has been helpful to you. It's really, really hard. And, when people say, I want to start a YouTube channel, my first instinct is great. The more people who can start talking, the better. The more voices that we hear. And frankly, even if it's something that everybody's heard about before, if you bring a unique perspective to the table, that's great. I'd love to hear about it. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be watching, commenting on every one of your damn videos, because unfortunately, I'm out of time. But at the same time, I encourage anybody to give it a shot, but also just have the patience, because it's going to take forever. It's going to take a long, long time. And you got to make sure that you're doing all the work, even if you're going to be a low-effort video maker, kind of like myself. So anyways, there you go. This turned into 30 minutes. Holy crap. But I hope this was interesting to you at the very least. And most of all, I hope that you, if you do start a channel, I hope it works out great for you. This thing, even despite it having been accidental, has been an absolutely wonderful force in my life. And, I'm super humbled, frankly, that that anybody subscribes to this. But I'm also just, I'm super grateful for it. And I hope that, if this is a road you choose to go down, I hope that you end up in the same place, right? Because, it's an absolute joy. but it's going to take a lot of work, even if that work is low effort, to get you there. So anyways, there you go. Hope this is interesting. Have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.